So you want to roll a bard? Well, here's what you need to know. Bards are entertainers, lore keepers, and masters of the occult. They're a support-oriented class with a penchant for fucking everything that moves and some things that don't. Never really got the horny bard trope personally. If it's because of their high charisma, I'm just glad it didn't spread to the other charisma-based classes. God knows what kind of freak shit those summoners would get into with their eidolons. Bards have mastered a form of magic that allows them to infuse their performances with spells, buffing their allies and debilitating their foes. This power is best personified in their composition spells, a collection of focus spells and cantrips unique to the class. Every bard starts with counter performance and inspire courage. One is a situational reaction that protects against abilities with two very specific traits, and the other is the reason you pick this class. Not only is Inspire Courage the bard's answer to what do spellcasters do with their third action, but it also can't be understated how powerful this ability is even beyond the early game. If you've ever played with a fighter in your party, you know that a +1 to hit is also a +1 to crit, and this gives that to everybody. Add to that flat bonus damage, and the marshals in your party will be lining up in front of you like preteen girls at a Jonas Brothers concert. Oh, and you also get the bonus to fear effects. How much this matters will depend entirely on what your GM rolled in their online encounter builder that week. Spending class feats can get you even more composition spells that run a similar gambit. Buff allies, debilitate enemies, and turn everyone nearby into obedient slaves for a minute. Now I know what you're thinking, and that thing you're thinking of definitely counts as harm. Don't argue with me on this. I don't want to see any of you sick fucks in RPG horror stories, got it? Good. Let's move on to subclasses. Every bard picks a muse as its source of inspiration, typically some powerful being or even a deity. Fun tip, be sure to pick the same deity as your cleric and remind them at every turn about not having to follow any vows of chastity. Oh, you get a couple extra spell slots to heal? Well, I'm still allowed to fuck, so who's the real winner here? Any muse you choose will fit into a handful of broad categories, which we will go into right now. Enigma muses make your bard a master lore keeper by buffing your recall knowledge skills. They start with a special skill called Bardic Lore, which is a catch-all for any type of recall knowledge check. Most of your subclass-specific feats buff your ability to use recall knowledge actions, making this one of the best metagaming characters in the game. Like to read through the bestiary in your spare time? Now you have an in-game reason to blurt out the monster's weaknesses in battle. Party get too distracted trying to form an all-goblin cheerleading squad to remember the main quest? Bardic Lore on the MacGuffin and you're back on track. Need to get on your GM's good side so they'll let you take that super unbalanced homebrew archetype. Roll whatever knowledge checks will let them info dump the campaign setting that nobody bothered to read the primer for. Your vast accumulation of knowledge culminates in being able to learn and cast more spells than your average bard, because it's apparently a deep hidden secret of the universe that you could just remember more spells. The Maestro Muse is the most quintessential version of the bard, that is to say, the backline support caster who bolsters their allies with the power of song. Maestro bards lean heavily into their compositions, initially by making them last longer. You gain access to more compositions, as well as several feats to stack them and make them more powerful. Assuming you take Harmonize, and you should take Harmonize, I mean, what else are you gonna take at level 6? Dirge of Doom? Wait, that doesn't have a saving throw. Never mind, take Dirge of Doom, then Harmonize. Then at level 20, you'll no longer be limited to one composition at a time, finally fulfilling the dream of being a one-man band who happens to have a bunch of backup dancers taking care of all that annoying combat business. Polymath is the other skill monkey muse, this time centered around charisma rather than intelligence. Its initial ability lets you use performance in place of your other charisma-based skills. Life is a stage, and you've mastered the art of assuming whatever role you need to get ahead with your peers. You know, like a psychopath. Picking up eclectic skill lets you use any skill untrained, in case you wanted to brag to your rogue as well as your cleric. Oh, you have to train to use your skills? How quaint. And just in case your wizard or sorcerer thinks they're safe, you can swap spells every day and learn spells from other traditions as well. Your capstone lets you make all your spells signature spells, but meh. You'd kinda have to plan a whole character around it, but it may be worthwhile for a level 20 one-shot. Polymath bards are a jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than those scrubs who can only master one. And finally, because every class needs that red-headed stepchild of a subclass, there's the Warrior Muse. So traditionally, bards have been one of these half-martial, half-caster Gish classes, and this is the spiritual continuation of that. Based on its initial feat, you'd think this is what you're meant to be, but the lack of weapon proficiency increases means you'll be lucky to sometimes hit the broadside of a barn past level 5. This makes the feats that rely on you critting kinda useless. Oh shit, these require melee attacks. That's less than useless. If you could do this with a bow from a safe distance, that'd be one thing. But Andrew Tate has a better chance of sexually satisfying a woman than you do of running your twink ass to the front lines and surviving. I mean, don't get me wrong. It is balanced, considering you still get your full spellcasting benefits. It's just such a letdown to be teased with this potential that doesn't pay off. The one kind of teasing bards aren't into. Also, while we're shitting on the warrior muse, can we talk about this real quick? Inspired Defense is one of the prerequisites, but Inspired Defense is exclusive to Maestro Muses, so you have to take Multifarious Muse just to qualify for this feat. You're devoting your first 3 class feats to a raised shield reaction, and need I remind you that you shouldn't be anywhere near anything that necessitates you wearing a shield. All that being said, there is still a use for this subclass. Fourth wall breaking meta humor. Basically, you spend an extra action before casting Inspire Courage to turn to your allies and say, you guys know we don't have to take turns, right? We can just hit them whenever. That turns on the light bulb in their brains and lets them spend their reaction to reposition, get an extra attack off, maybe both. It gives your party members who don't have something like shield block or attack of opportunity something to do with their reaction, which is kinda cool. It just has to compare itself to buff stacking, endless spell versatility, and near omniscience. So why play a bard? You know, besides trying to seduce things so often it counts as your exploration activity. You play a bard because, despite how you might roleplay, you don't want to be the main character. You're content propping up the rest of your party so the story you tell at the tavern later will be even more epic. And isn't that what bards are all about? Collecting the best tales and songs to share with the masses? Besides, everyone knows that side characters are always the fan favorites, so it's still a win for you. Alright, I figured since this is the Bard video, it wouldn't be right to end it without a song, right? So, here you go. Can I put my balls in your jaw?